team.
Okay,
Rigobert,
sure.
promote.
Well
For
noted.
some reason, I can't seem to get the panel, the participants again. There's a technical, there it is.
Okay, he's promoted.
Brilliant.
I don't know.
Rigobert, where are you? Vous êtes là? We need to check before we start. We have, in fact, we've started. Right, let's begin. Rigobert will sort out your visuals and audio in due course. So good, he's online. Rigobert, could you start your camera and video, please? Just to see where you are. Tech, is he promoted to panelist yet? Could you just confirm?
Yeah, he is.
So technically, there he is. Thank you, Rigobert. Could you just, before we start, we've got 1 minute.
Yes, yes.
Hello,
everyone. Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay, everyone.
Okay.
They're all here. Can we all mute our mics, please, when we're not speaking? I'm now going to open the proceedings. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Internet Rights and Principles Coalition's DC meeting. DC stands for Dynamic Coalition. We have a wonderful session ahead of us today, and it's called Sustainable Internet Governance and Right to Development, in which we're linking issues around environmental sustainability, the right to development as inscribed in UN treaties and covenants, particularly the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and others, and the right to development itself, and human rights. So that's the purpose of our meeting. We have here a very strong team. I will introduce you very briefly. We have Minda Moreira, co-chair of the Internet Rights and Principles Coalition. We have 6 speakers who I'll introduce one at a time. We have June Paris, who will be our rapporteur. So if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat, because it's a little easier to collate that way. We have Michael Ogia, who's going to keep track of any questions arising. And feel free, people, if you're an attendee, to put a hands up, and Michael will let me know that you're there so that we can put you in. We will start with more sort of formal proceedings. We'll have the speakers' first round of comments, and then we'll put it to the floor, and we'll go from there, basically. It's very straightforward. Just in order to get ourselves in the right frame of mind, the point of this meeting is that it's going to be continuing what we consider agenda-making, groundbreaking work that's drawing links between environmental sustainability and human rights within the remit of internet governance policy consultations. So its focus today is the Article 4 of the Charter of Human Rights and Principles for the Internet. More on that shortly. And we've convened this meeting in light of the ongoing but increasingly urgent need to not only identify but rectify the adverse environmental impacts of internet technologies. So the outputs for this session, we will put in our meeting notes, and that will be brought forward to our meeting on the 16th of November, which is a workshop, and we really encourage you to be there as well. So this is part 1 of a 2-parter. And without too much further ado, I can point you to the link. If someone, Michael, if you could paste in the link to our actual session on the IGF website so people can check that out. And I would now like to give the floor to Minda Moreira, our program chair. And the floor is yours, Minda.
Thank you, Marianne, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our annual meeting. My name is Minda Moreira, and I am the co-chair of the Internet Rights and Principles Coalition. And it's really great to see so many people joining us here today, and a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. I take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the RPC and the work that we do. So we are based here at the IGF, and we are an open network of individuals and organizations committed to making human rights work for the online environment. And we have been around since 2008. Anyone can join us by signing up to our mailing list. And every year we hold elections for available positions at the steering committee. And this year, as call for nominations will be made soon via the list. So if you would like to get more involved, please sign up to our mailing list. The role of the steering committee is to coordinate the coalition's outreach work, and we meet regularly throughout the year to update on our activities. All our outreach work draws on a chart of human rights and principles for the internet. And this is our main document. So the charter basically articulates existing international human rights law and norms, and then translates them to the online context. And what I personally find fascinating about the charter is that is the outcome of an amazing collaborative exercise. So many people and many organizations were involved in the drafting of this document, and the result is this document is a strong, accessible, open and a living document, as we will see throughout this discussion. So the charter was published in 2011, and so we are basically celebrating the 10th anniversary next year. And is available in 10 languages. It also has the 10 principles for the internet, which are translated into 26 languages. Over the years, the RPC has supported rights-inspired initiatives. We have done a lot of collaborative work with partners from other dynamic coalitions, civil society networks, universities, political representatives, technical community, and all these to raise awareness on the need to implement rights-based frameworks for the online environment. And I personally find it really inspiring to learn of so many people in academia, NGOs, governments that find the charter a useful tool to raise awareness in their communities and to advance human rights online. Also, since 2014, the coalition is an observer to the CDM-SI, which is the Steering Committee on Media Information Society at the Council of Europe. A very, very important part of our work is the translation of the charter, and we are extremely grateful for the work of the translation teams that made the charter accessible to so many people around the world. Here in this room, for instance, we have Anan, who coordinated translation of the charter into Arabic, and we also have Rigobert, who is responsible for the French version. And next spring, we are publishing the Italian translation. And this is thanks to Eduardo Celeste and his team, and also students from universities of Padua and Salerno. And we are really looking forward to have the Italian version available for Eurodic 2021 in Trieste. Also, through the charter, we have discussed and highlighted many human rights issues online, and to name just a few, the right to access, protection of rights of minorities, including migrants and refugees, privacy and data protection, online abuse, immersion technologies and human rights, and more recently, environmental sustainability. So this year, the steering committee has been focusing on Articles 1 to 4 of the Charter, and we continue our collaboration with other groups and initiatives. So for instance, we joined Youth for Digital Sustainability to discuss environmental sustainability of the ICTs. We had members of the coalition participating at rights-based events, such as RightsCon, and we work together with civil society groups, such as the APC. We have been also participating in national and regional initiatives. We were part of the organizing team of Eurodic's plenary 4, Greening the Internet Governance last June, and we are very excited to continue and contribute more on this issue with them for other activities. And here at IGF, we are organizing a workshop 266, as Marian mentioned, environmental sustainability and human rights. And this is a Monday, the 16th of November. We are also participating in the main session on environment this Monday, 9th. Michael Ogier will be moderating that session. And we are also participating in the DC's session on Wednesday, the 11th. You can also visit our booth number 3 at IGF Village. And I will shortly pass it over again to Marian for this meeting, which today we are focusing on Articles 4 of the Charter. And this is the right to development through the internet. This article has inspired a lot of our work in recent years. So our meeting in Paris back in 2018, and also our session Internet and the Climate Crisis last year in Berlin. And in this session, we will be looking at environmental impact of Internet connected technologies affect human rights, especially the right to development. And also we can work together to ensure that we have an environmental, sustainable and the rights-based internet. So I think that is all for me. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Comments and questions are very welcome. So thank you very much, and over to you, Marian.
Thank you so much, Minda. I did share my screen. Could somebody just confirm that you could see the slides as Minda was speaking?
Yes.
You could. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. So just as a segue, and for the record, for the audio record, I'm going to read out the Article 4 and remind us all that this was written 10 years ago when the environment was still not considered an issue, let alone an issue for internet governance. So Article 4 of the Charter of Human Rights and Principles for the Internet reads thus: right to development through the Internet. All UDHR human rights require economic, social, cultural, and political development in order to be fully realized, as recognized in the UN Declaration on the Right to Development from 1986. The Internet has a vital role to play in helping to achieve the full realization of human rights, in particular in eradicating poverty, hunger, and diseases, and promoting gender equality and empowerment of women. The right to development includes the full enjoyment of all rights related to the Internet and set out in this Charter. On the Internet, the right to development includes A, poverty reduction and human development. Information and communication technology shall be designed, developed, and implemented to contribute to sustainable human development and empowerment. B, environmental sustainability. The Internet must be used in a sustainable way. This relates to the disposal of e-waste and to the use of the Internet for the protection of the environment. So speaking to those very broad themes, giving us some focus, some concrete examples, case studies, and challenges and critiques, I would like to turn to our very first panelist, and I will just simply let you have the floor. I have a timekeeping device of the analog nature, which is an egg timer. And I will keep this running so you can see me. That's the 3 minutes. Just the opening remarks will be 3 minutes. So without too much further ado, I'd like to introduce Noha Abdel Baki, who is also representing our youth coalition. We're thrilled to have you here, Noha. The floor is yours. And the egg timer now begins.
Thank you, Marian, for the introduction. As Marian has mentioned, I'm the steering committee member of the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance, and I work as a data storage engineer in one of the top IT vendors. First, I would like to thank the IRPC to initiate the coordination between both of our dynamic coalitions and to involve youth in this important discussion. Youth are the main users of the Internet. They are digital natives and tech savvies. which give the advantage to the tech giants to push the trends and the urge of buying their latest versions of smartphones and smart devices like watches, screens, and gaming appliances. Amid the pandemic, there was an increase in the need of accessing the internet and possessing more devices for purposes like online education, working from home, and attending virtual conferences like this version of the IGF. A family of 2 parents and 2 kids might need to have 4 laptops at home apart from the phones. 10 years ago, owning 1 smart device might be called a luxury. Now it can be called minimalism. The number of mobile phones in the world is now larger than the number of people. It's not carbon that imposes the threat anymore, as e-waste is becoming the elephant in the room. On the other hand, youth are the front line of environment, and there is a big pool of youth experts from advocates, activists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and others. A great example is Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old environmental activist who brought this important debate to high-level policy discussions. Another example is the Youth for Digital Sustainability program, which brought 50 young people to produce 12 messages as recommendations. My colleague Rashi will discuss further about this program during her remarks. And there are unlimited opportunities if we create more room for youth in sustainable tech to create innovative solutions through encouraging the startups ecosystem, organizing hackathon, and encouraging private sector and governments to adopt their creative ideas. This can be a step in the direction towards manufacturing eco-friendly by design devices. Having said that, I would like to recommend linking Article 4 of the Charter of Human Rights and Principles of the Internet with the Sustainable Development Goals like SDGs 7, 9, 12, and 13, as none of the SDGs contain the words Internet or technologies in them. Thank you. Back to you, Mariana.
Brilliant, thank you. That was 3 minutes on the dot. Thank you so much, Noha, and for the recommendation, which I know our rapporteur will be noting immediately. I'd like to now give the floor to Ms. Hanan Boujami, very well known to our coalition and champion of the Arabic, Farsi, and Kurdish Charter editions, and a brilliant campaign in the MENA region. Hanan, the floor is yours. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hanan Boujami. I'm an ex-co-chair of the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Rights and Principles. But at the moment, I'm working for the African Union as a senior expert on policy and regulation, among other roles that I have different entities in the field of IG. Thank you, Noha, for your pertinent contribution. And I have to add that the IRPC is a pioneer when it comes to predicting, projecting onto the future what could be the policy challenges that we face in the IG discussion. And indeed, environment now is at the heart of our discussion already for the last 2 years, but the Charter itself have already highlighted this issue hand in hand with the right to development. So if you look at the Charter, you will notice, and Minda already cited the texts, and Marianne also, and you can see that both actually go hand in hand. During our discussions, we anticipated also that this specific test might need a little bit of updating, even though the process of doing so is quite tedious and it requires consensus among all the members. But I think why we're having this discussion today is because you know, the sustainability discussion is very much tied to how we actually promote the use of the internet in various contexts. Now, I have to say that, the developed world, is more or less consumed with the notion of consumerism, and which brings us to, the discussion whether we really want people to be technologically advanced, but on the other hand, we're not looking at the offset of having a tech-wired society. And this is where the genius of the Charter comes from, the principal point of view, where we promote, the right development, but we say, hey, this right comes with the responsibility of protecting the environment, which is, I think, a very important notion. It's also interesting because when we promote the Charter, and I still have many copies here in my office in different languages, we tend to try to lobby mainly policymakers to subscribe to these principles, because it's a soft mechanism. It's not a kind of a legally binding, let's say, provision, but it's a soft mechanism that would convince, the policymakers, government officials, different actors to actually believe in the principles that we're promoting through this coalition. But to spread this in the society, we need a community like this we have on the call today to spread the word about the work that we're doing, because the principles per se are a text, it's black on white, but how to actually mobilize, people to believe in what we're saying, and knowing that there's many theories when we talk about the sustainability of the internet or the environmental impact of the internet. The uptake of technology globally makes this kind of stance a little bit hard to promote as a principle, but I think we need to do a little bit more effort into actually bringing the society into these conversations. Obviously, the big tech giants either working in the hardware industry, because their business model entirely relies on that, or providing tech services, to communities all around the world, definitely should be part of this conversation. And I was hoping that one of the giants join us today to have this conversation. But all in all, as I said, I wanted to focus mainly on the principle and how important it is for us to actually incorporate other components, that would reflect the very true meaning of sustainability using technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hanan. Thank you. We have 62 participants, and Michael Ogia will be keeping track of your chat questions and comments, which I'll ask him to bring in at a later point. The timer will now begin for our colleague from DG Connect, the European Commission, Mr. Ilias Yakovidis. Excuse me if I got that wrong, I practiced. And Ilias, the floor is yours, and I will start the egg timer. Off you go.
Well,
so much.
Thank you very much, Marianne. So good afternoon, everybody. I will speak a little bit about the European dimension and what we are doing in the European Commission and our vision for Europe. We have, as you know, declared that our goal will be to climate neutral Europe by 2050. When we did that, we didn't really understand, and that was a year ago, what exactly is the role of internet and ICT digital sector as a whole. As we growing into this realization, we have understood how important it is. In the beginning, the digital transition, the digital transformation didn't really care much about sustainable transition. And sustainable transition realized early enough that they will not be able to get there without the digitalization. But deeper we go, we understand that actually even the digital transition and the materials behind that and all the issues around the environment also needs the sustainability transition. And this panel actually brings the third dimension of SDG beyond economic and environmental, the social issues. And if we don't tie them up in synergistic way, all three, we will not go far, because without people, we will not achieve neither green nor digital transformation. Each of them have their own risks, introducing inequalities and unjust ways. Just one example, green and environmental sustainability is becoming so urgent and so important that we may actually forget the social issues as we go rushing into sustainability measures. One example could be that we just, and mayors on a local environment, they say, well, there'll be no cars in the center of the town. Only people with the electric car can enter the center of the town. You can imagine how just this is as a statement. The same can be for many other services that are polluting, and people just suddenly say, well, we will tax, you know, the carbon in kind of horizontal way, and you saw the gilets jaunes. So unless we get the right mix of the social, the just transition, and green and digital, we will not achieve all our goals that we set ourselves for 2030 and 2050. I just want to give you 2 examples of what we do. We are looking at greening the ICT so we actually can deploy more. So if we really want to connect another billion of people, we need to make sure that this ICT deployment is done in a green jacketed way. Now, what does it mean? We need to look at 2 dimensions, the energy consumption. But for that, as I already said in maybe previous in Eurodic session, energy consumption is something that we can actually tame, and together with the renewables, we will be able to get there soon. It's the material consumption and the e-waste and the pollution and the reliance on rare earth and deployment of natural resources that is a major problem for ICT. If we had to choose, let's focus to make sure that SDG 12 is the principle for ICT development, responsible consumption and production. On the potential of the ICT, so if we leave the greening of ICT, which is, we have a lot of actions in the Commission, we have a lot of actions that we will take together with all the member states on how to green the ICT, and we're starting with the obvious data centers and telecoms and circularity of our devices. And as we have seen, there was a mention about digital and smartphones. Smartphones are the problem of today. We change them every 2 years. And they are huge e-waste because we don't recycle. Less than 15% is actually recycled. There is a growing number of reuse and refurbishment, but it's still nowhere where we should be. The biggest problem is durability. Recycling is already beginning of the bad thing. To keep the value of those devices long as possible is the issue that we need to solve. Built-in obsolescence that we have to fight, reparability that we need to enable, the right to repair, and of course, the design for durability, because the design is not yet there. Now, on the enabling part of ICT, ICT can enable a lot of good things, but only if it's green jacketed, as I said. If we really pay attention to what we do with the streaming, the energy consumption and material consumption, the good things it can do in every sector you can imagine: agriculture, energy grids, transport, manufacturing. But what I would like to select just for today, just to conclude, is that there is a silver bullet for me, what digital can do, and that is circularity of our economy at large. Because the circularity of our economy at large is the solution to the climate change. Even if everything that we have in our economy runs on renewables, imagine that the world of 2030 will be 100% renewables, we have not reached sustainability. The material problem of produce, use, waste, that linear way of consumption has to completely disappear if we want to be sustainable. And people just focusing on energy consumption have blind eye to this. So circular economy is something that I want to highlight.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have a lot of content. Thank you so much, Elias. It's very important that we have an intergovernmental, particularly an organisation such as the EU, who have a policy to green the internet. And Elias is keeping us honest. Thank you. We're now going to move to Mr. Rigobert Kimogne from our Coalition Steering Committee and from Cameroon. And Rigobert, when you're ready, the floor is yours. 3 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Minda. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rigobert Kimogne from Cameroon. I am a journalist and expert at CT. I work as a digital program for Paradigm Institute for Francophone Africa. My presentation will be focused to show how environmental sustainability and human rights work in South Africa, especially Francophone countries and contexts. And at the end of my presentation, I will be I will try to respond to a question to identify and proposing a possible solution to the negative environmental impacts of internet technology in the region. As you know, in the 1919 years, with the massive importations of mechanical vehicle, Africa has turned to a massive importations of electronic devices for almost 4 decades. Over the past 2 decades, the process of technology transfer and has gradually involved in views of the dangers of pollution by technologies. The African continent has embarked in recent years in the regulation of environment pollution generated by technologies. And we can say that South African countries often classify as the poorest, import technology products in large numbers, and these often new or used products are a real problem of the physical and virtual environment. Pollution of the physical environment occur from equipment waste, so the compartment are often poorly understood and the dangers poorly assessed. Virtual pollution is often generated by interfering electronic devices poorly connected or having exceeded their lifespan. It is important to regulate that regulator address the stabilities of the internet by focusing on the risk internet user face in using the technological tool of their disposal in order to ensure a stable macroeconomic environment. The technical company or the internal which diffuse ray harmful to health must present an annual general report. General report on the situation, but also before setting to present a reliable study on the technological responsibility of the company for environment. Thank you. Thank you for your time to shed me on the subject. Thank you, Marianne.
Merci bien, Rigobert. Thank you so much for that. Very important to get the view from Sub-Saharan Africa, Francophone Africa particularly. Merci, merci.
Okay, merci
now I'd like to turn to our representative from the technical community, Ms. Vesna Malolovich. Vesna, the floor is yours, and my very analog timer will now begin. Vesna.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm very grateful to be present here with all of you today, and thank you for inviting me. I work for RIPE NCC, that is Réseau IP Européen Network Coordination Center. We have 3 functions broadly. We are regional internet registry, so we distribute IP addresses to our members in Europe, Middle East, and former Soviet republics. And we maintain the WHOIS database for those resources. We are not-for-profit membership organization and located in Amsterdam. We are also secretariat for the RIPE community. So that's like 2 different things which have the same name, so it's very confusing. So we help to organize the bottom-up development of the technical coordination of the internet infrastructure. So it's the engineers who maintain the internet infrastructure in those regions that come to discuss the things of their interest in an open forum. And so you can all take part in mailing lists and meetings, which are now all online. And also a third thing is we are a neutral and trusted source of data. So we host the services that are benefiting the global internet community, for example, a K-root name server, one of the 13 root name servers, and measurement platforms, for example, RIPE Atlas and Routing Information Service. And we also participate in a lot of internet governance and other technical communities like IETF and ISOC. Myself, I'm a community builder at the RIPE NCC. My job is to connect people and to cross-connect different technical communities like hackers, activists, artists, feminists, with the RIPE community. One of my preferred tools for that is a hackathon. So I was really happy that Noha mentioned the young people and their involvement in hackathons. And so I organized already many of them, and we are still working on them. So please stay in touch about this. Originally, I'm from Yugoslavia, or now that's an ex-Yugoslavia, but I live in Holland. So today, what brought me here today is, well, Michael, thank you for inviting me, but it's also my interest in environmental justice. And I would like to help to decrease the ecological footprint of the internet by influencing the technical communities to include sustainability and human rights goals into their practices. And by using the feminist principles of the internet, which are resistance and nonviolence and care. So I made a certain suggestion for adding to the Article 4, which can be summed with: growth of the internet must not be the reason for destroying the environment or harming the environment. There were many more words, but my 3 minutes are out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vesna. Thank you. I'll paste in your proposed Article 4C text, and we can perhaps take a quick vote at the end. And last, thank you so much. Lastly, but not least, is Rashi Saxena. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right. Forgive me if I am not. From the Youth Sustainability Coalition. So Rashi, welcome. And the floor is yours, and all 3 minutes of it, plus give or take.
Thanks, Marianne. Hi, everyone. My name is Rashi Saxena. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon from wherever you're logging in. I'm really excited to be here. As Marianne mentioned, I am one of the 50 youth working members of the digital sustainability policies that we've come out with. And I also firstly wanted to discuss that sustainability, according to me, is two sides of the coin, where one side is, of course, the human right aspect without neglecting the climate change aspect. And as a lot of extinguished panelists before me mentioned, I think the Sustainable Development Goals, hopefully after 2030, can have the word internet and can have stronger motivations and visions and policies that incorporate the backbone of our future. And we also see how the pandemic has exposed the social inequalities, where people don't have access to a robust, healthy, and sustainable internet. So I come from Bangalore in India, and we do have a lot, and we did see a lot of issues with children not having, especially from the rural areas, and women not being able to work, going through the informal sector was in a total collapse because everyone works on daily wages, and also the e-waste sector and the refurbishment sector is a $23 billion industry globally. And we do have policies in place in India that were upgraded in 2016, which talk about upskilling, providing economic incentives. But, I see something lacking, and I would also maybe perhaps like to add to Article 4 is that digital literacy is something that should be added. We need to upskill people so that we can sort of make sure that the refurbishment and the e-waste industry getting in sophisticated practices, getting subject matter experts, as mentioned in our policies, or also not looking at diversity as a decorative piece and tokenistic, but rather more on the lines of holistic measures and holistic approaches, looking at best practices from other global emerging economies to make sure that we are abiding by the principles of circular economy. We are making sure that the working conditions in the industry are good, and avoiding exposure to acid, perhaps acid leaching and open air incarcerations. And of course, we did have the refurbished smartphone market, where we have each user has more than 2 smartphones, perhaps. And yeah, it grew by a healthy 9% last year. And of course, I can go on and on and on, but I think we as youth, I'm just going to end in the next 10 seconds, we as youth need to build legacies and also provide humane and have a change in behavioral practices so that we can make sure that this is a healthy and sustainable world. Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you. So that concludes our first round of our panelists. I understand there are 2 questions at least. I think, Michael, are any of these questions in the Q&A ones that our panels could immediately answer based on their first interventions? And if so, could you read that, just which one it is you think could be answered by one of our panelists immediately?
There's actually a really, really good question here that I'm quite curious about. Ushnish asks, is the Basel II Convention, including e-waste, being followed by most countries, and are countries using loopholes to dump this? So this might be really good for Ilyas. I don't know if you're familiar enough with the Basel II topic. Would you be able to take that? And if I may, there's a second question also from the same person, asking the wider community, does the mining of technology-related minerals such as silicon, but in this case, it's also referring to conflict minerals, tin, gold, etc., require controls for conflict minerals as there is in place for blood diamonds? And I could answer that, but I would open that to the floor as well.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm sure, Ilyas, you have some comments on the issue around the Basel Convention. Perhaps you could just remind the meeting what that is, and also about the very, the issue around blood diamonds, blood metals. And I will put it bluntly because that effectively is what we're talking about at the very beginning of the life cycle of our beautiful phones. Ilyas, 3 minutes, the floor is yours. You don't have to answer the questions, but feel free to respond.
Right. I will have to check actually what is the ratification of the Basel Convention by all member states on that one. I know one thing though, that in the past, we had exported our e-waste to Africa and other countries, and that is now forbidden. Now we have our own rules how to treat e-waste. It's really getting difficult. We have our own internal market issues, how to get the e-waste the fastest possible to recycling plants and how to get the value back. So, but I will come back on the Basel Convention if you want in writing. I don't think I have direct access now to all this information, okay? Now I just wanted to say that I see on the chat that a lot of people say, well, we keep our mobiles much longer. That's true, and I do too. I change them every 5 to 6 years. We had a Eurobarometer. We asked our people, how long would you be willing to keep your mobile and what would you like to do? That's the old one, yeah. And there is easily more than 67% of people said we would like to keep it 5 years. We are forced to change it because my application is not anymore updated. So it's kind of the software updates, it's the performance issue, it's the screens, it's the batteries. And that's what we're trying to do, and maybe look at it from a legal point of view. I mean, you just do a regulation that phones like that should not be even able to sell in Europe. So this is one issue that we want to check. On the ethical and let's say the social and the social human rights issue with respect to mining, we are working on a concept called product passport for electronics, for construction, for plastics, for packaging, for textile and other products, where this information would be captured. So the supply chains and the human rights of the supply chains would be very transparent and visible. At the moment, it's kind of, we are flying blind. We don't know where it comes, where it goes. There's system leakages. So, and I think first regulation, if you're really interested in this kind of things, will be on batteries coming up in a few weeks from now. And that's where I'm already trying to make sure that I capture everything from supplies and the original materials all the way down to use and recycling and reuse. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also, if I could just touch on a point, asking for people to respond specifically to this very important issue about the hard materials, the precious metals and the actual devices. As Ilyas reminds us, it isn't just about recycling, it's about the problem of a business model that builds in obsolescence. And this is very, very underscored at the moment as we go online for learning and teaching and work, is all the apps we have to download are now forcing us through various business models and the designs that are inscribed to upgrade whole laptops, whole PCs, forcing us to buy actually new devices in order to be able to run the latest equipment there. So it's a software hardware kind of relationship that is not inevitable. And Ilyas, you've reminded us there's always an alternative. So I'd like if people could, Ilyas, you can you can answer
I'm
that.
just
I'd like to throw the floor
if I
open.
can add now that we talk about this, I just want to make a very important point. While we're talking that ICT has its dark side and it's the polluter, ICT is the only, if not the major solution to enable circular models, product as a service. So imagine in the electronics that we kind of pay for services rather than the materials, then whoever gives us that material will have all the incentives for us to keep it as long as possible because it's an expense to them. And there are many other, agriculture, I already explained that in agriculture, it's not about deploying digital as a goal. Digital is there as a mean, and we need to kind of have a minimal principle, what we actually need as digital to change the business model. I give you an example. Instead of telling every farmer, you should buy your own drone and put GPS on your tractor and subscribe to satellite imaging services and put IoT, even biodegradable, in the soil, get a service to protect your plant health. And that service will kind of charge you per hectare. And the service will have all the incentives to minimize the agricultural products, pesticides, fertilizers, because it's expense to that company. The company will get digital because they have to have the satellite imaging, drones and IoT, all the connectivity in place to be able to protect the field with a minimum expense, which is minimum application of pesticides. You have healthy soil, healthy food, business models that work for farmers and the companies. And this is the power of ICT that we need to promote and really make that realization. Of course, it's good to do it always with a minimalist and kind of a green, what I call green jacketed principles.
Thank you so much. Very important point, Elias. Could we have, I was just checking with our tech team. I understand I know that we can promote someone from the floor so they can speak to the camera. Rachel, is that still possible? Because I believe you have the controls. And if you do really wish to make a comment, please put hands up so we can promote you to panelist. And if you do want to intervene, please obey the egg timer. Have our panelists got any comments directly to this issue around materials, inbuilt obsolescence, supply chain issues, and what Elias is referring to is the 360-degree approach that the Internet Rights and Principles Coalition has been advocating and really needs to be very, very visible. 360 degrees rather than a silo approach. Rashi, your hand is up. Would you? Yes, thank you.
I'd like to add to Elias's point and look at the fact that there's no such thing as one size fits all. I believe it's important since the e-waste industry and the refurbished industry is pretty informal in nature. I do believe that we have to do a lot of testing and trials and put in the necessary regulations by actively involving civic participation and actually going through a multi-stakeholder approach and see how we can make sure that this is going to be a viable business for people who are forced to go with obsolete or other smartphones that aren't sustainable and have to be given up in the next 2 years. So I do believe that there is a lot of trial and error, and we can't borrow exactly what one country is doing, and we'll have to contextualize based on the social cultural context, because pre-loved items and secondhand items are still a taboo especially in India, especially given the virus at the moment. There's so much hysteria around it, so yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes, a good point. I was just wondering if I could put to the panel and the floor. There's a danger here in these conversations that we kind of expect the global south to be the ones who recycle and share technology, and the global north the ones who buy the latest. Or the flip problem, it's only the global north that can afford it, and anyone in the global south who does have a fancy new iPhone has got their priorities wrong. So so I was wondering if the panel could perhaps address I think the question that's going begging a little bit, just is within the Charter, Article 4. Sorry, I'll let you have the floor, Idris, in a minute. In the Charter, Article 4, that perhaps is a little bit pie in the sky and it's asking too much. So that's my question to us all. How do we drill down and make this actually workable? But Idris, I believe, could you identify yourself, and you have the floor? Could you unmute? So I had to just ask you to unmute. Idris, I didn't mean to mute you, but can you unmute? Hello? Hello? Are you there, Idris? Ah, good, thank you. Yes.
Go ahead.
The floor is yours. Oh, you're back on mute. There you are. Off you go. Sorry, no, you're back on mute.
Yeah, I said it's okay. Yeah.
Yep,
okay,
brilliant.
So please go ahead.
Okay, Deirdre, you have a criticism that is not about best, it's about good. Deirdre, would you like to speak more to that? Personally, I see why should we actually settle for second best here? I think the time has run out for us to be worrying about best, better, good. I think we're at the point now where we're not even reaching the minimum threshold of our planet survival. And I'd like to throw to the panel, what do they think is the most urgent thing that has to be done now within our 360-degree approach? There's often an accusation accused at the Charter itself that it's trying to do too much. And it's often a skepticism from particularly technical and business communities that human rights really is something that needs to be added later and really has no part to play in design or in consumer practices or in business cycles, or worse still, in supply chains. So anyone like to comment to that particular point? The floor is open. Panelists, Hanan, I think, has had to leave. I wanted to ask if she had anything to add. Okay. Anybody want to comment on these rather large issues? I think we need to be quite self-critical as well. Anyone like to comment? Someone has asked, do we instead have to specifically target tech companies? Yeah. Anyone like to speak to the issue around yeah, Ilyas, please.
Can I maybe just break the ice first? So what I think we need a kind of a triple offensive. Of course, it's too much maybe to ask for you as a panel, but within the UN, there are enough of agencies that could take some of that. One is to promote whatever is happening, the race of the private sector to be green themselves. We have to make sure that that they themselves sometimes don't understand if they greenwash or not with their race. So try to get the private sector serious and agreed on some monitoring and calculations that are trustable, transparent, credible, so we can actually measure what are we doing with the technology with respect to sustainability and human rights as the social issues. Second is to make sure that we commit at the highest level the political, the politicians, because now it's in the hands of ministries of environment. And I have seen that before. I've worked for many years in ministries of health. And if it keep it within cocooning, within the ministries of environment, it has no chance to really scale. It has to become an issue of Ministry of Finance, Economy, and the Prime Minister's office. So working with Germany, we need to scale it to a chancelleryate. So in a way, it has to go, this agenda has to go high. It cannot be kept by one silo ministry policymaking. And the third is consumers. How do we, as the UN, through whatever agencies we have, to influence the consumer's behavior and put it in a way, not nudging, and you cannot, of course, tell people you should do that. That would never go far. But those that want to behave responsible, we should provide tools and guidelines how to help them in their lifestyle choices. So people do have a choice. They want many of them, not everybody, but many of them do. How do we support them to carry that choice forward? Thanks. Marianne,
Marianne, you're muted.
Marianne.
Noha, you had an intervention on this topic. Thank you, Ilyas, for bringing up lifestyle. I'm bringing that into the mix. Noha.
Yes, it's about creating a life cycle for products or equipment that is sustainable as well, not also always considering the disposal of the devices. There is also the market pushes for the private sector to go to be transformed digitally and adopt digital transformation, but the ICTs has the solutions or the answer for this too. You don't have to, businesses doesn't have to create or to build their own data centers while we have cloud computing, for example. So as like we have the issue, we have the ICTs offer the solutions as well.
Thank you. Yes, so let's look at solutions. This topic can be overwhelming, but before we do that, unless Rashi is already, Rashi, would you like to take the floor?
You know, I've also wanted to kind of again echo in with what Elias and Noha said. All of the issues, or rather the solutions that were brought up, are actually policy messages with what the research that we've done with 32 different youth stakeholders and we've kind of really deliberated and seen and tried out as to what would work and what wouldn't work. And maybe I mean, this might sound a little too radical, but maybe human rights issues and climate change should be bipartisan issues so that we don't at least stop the work or halt the work that other governments have been doing. Yeah, that's my only comment.
Any other comments? We have an interesting line on the chat about consumer-led models, and my feeling is we're very much focusing, and I think it's a good thing, not on so much the software, but on the hardware, the devices. These are the things that also, you know, we've talked a lot about software and data centers and the consumer consumption of energy and the production of heat that adds to global warming. But today we're having a very interesting conversation about these things that really are part of our lives. The wearable watches, the laptops, the tablets, particularly the smartphones, which are just mini tablets basically, and the fact that they are completely unsustainable on the long term. So I can give people speaking rights if they wish to, because I can actually just run down the list of participants. So if you do want to speak to this particular topic, please let me know now. Panelists, any more kind of concrete, I mean, how do we persuade people to let go of the latest model of the iPhone, if I may just mention one brand, or the latest model of their Samsung tablet, just to be fair and name another one, or not to update their laptop, which is perhaps 8 years old in my case. Anyone wish to speak to Elias? Yeah.
Kind of a major minor issue, but now that we are all homes and we are kind of through COVID teleworking and doing everything, what we could do and try either public or private sector teleworkers to help to have one, because I have two laptops. I have my personal and I have my work laptop. And that's true for many teleworkers. Just a simple solution would be, could we actually arrive to a position, because teleworking will stay with us even after post-COVID. We have a projection that about 30% of people that telework now will stay, at least 30% actually will stay teleworking. Can we support actually that we use the same device for work and personal? Okay, so we don't need to have everything double mobile, double tablet, double laptop. That's what we do have today. Yeah? Now on the latest, I think that's difficult. That's kind of cultural and difficult to get into. But what we could do is to support services that do not or help the models that are there not to subsidize the newest device, so that they keep you as a service. Most of the companies now, they just subsidize the new brands just to get you to sign up to renew your subscription. And so that's maybe not the best way to do it. At the same time, we are trying to see if we can get take back scheme campaign, so people actually have 3 or 4 phones in their drawers that are sitting there just for some maybe sentimental reasons, because there is a picture of my kid on it, whatever. So if we can find kind of a trustable deletion of whatever personal data, that's true for data centers as well. There are huge thousands of servers from data centers being shredded because people don't trust that the data on them would be erased correctly. So you can imagine the waste just from that little untrust in the personal data story.
Thank you, Elias. Very important concrete points. Keep the examples going, everybody. This is very informative as well. Amber, are you okay with taking the floor? You were speaking about consumer-led models in terms of wearable technologies. Hi, Hanan, great to have you back. Amber, are you able, if you feel comfortable with that? Lovely to see you. Can you unmute? Off you go.
Yeah, I was thinking about like what Ilias was saying, like whether you're an iPhone person or an Android person, and we've all kind of become either one of those people, having work laptops and having personal laptops, having an iPad, having an Apple Watch. These technologies are so ingrained within our lives, and we can't not take away from how much they are. We pay money every month toward them, and I think that relationship could start to be redefined in a way, where it can encompass sustainable goals in the most base form, where you are responsible for that type of technology. You're responsible in a way, insofar as it takes up a lot of energy, and it takes up a lot of resources to get there. And in that way, you could actually provide ways that you can sustain it. So what I said about tech companies, they could have a refurbishment service. So like EE do in the UK now, you're encouraged to recycle your phone, and you will get significant discounts. It needs to be in a kind of consumer-led model, because that's what's going to work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Consumer-led, but how do we get consumers to lead? I think we're dealing in the
I think you have to define it like that. Yeah, it's quite it's a big one, isn't it? And I found what you were saying about the global north, global south. I think that's a really interesting one.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak to this? I think we need to, at the moment, we're struggling between the governmental responsibility, the corporate responsibility, and the whole point about maybe it's just down to the individual. And on that point, I think, Leandro, you had your hand up. Lovely to see you here. Thank you.
Hi, just one comment related to what we were just discussing. I don't know if you know about the Electronics Watch, because when we talk about empowering consumers, I mean, corporate consumers or public procurement consortia are able to do that. And this is one interesting example. And about the reuse, so I think it's difficult to ask people to do efforts, but at least we can ensure that devices have a second-hand use. And that can be also work together with social enterprises who refurbish these devices, and they donate or give or sell for a very low price these devices for other users, which might enjoy the device if you don't anymore. And of course, I mean, there is the abandonware of companies who produce the devices that never forget about them. It cannot be that they abandon their devices and they do not maintain the software and the hardware and provide spare parts and also spare software updates. So there are many things where we can really act, because it's like urgent to do it.
Yes, Leandro, I agree. It occurred to me too, most people keep their old devices in a box, in a cupboard, under the bed. There are many funny scenes and wires and cables. And if we were to put all our different antique devices together, but there's nowhere to go to take your old devices. So surely there's some role for our local governments, our city governments. And it should not just be seen as charity. It should be seen as absolutely crucial. So it isn't just behavior, it's perception. Someone noted in the chats about perception. So with that segue, any comments on this? I think it's worth, if we don't mind, settling on this particular aspect. How do we actually really get the link between behavioral change and the opportunity to change your behavior?
Marianne?
Yes, Esna, please.
Yes. So there is one aspect which springs to my head, and that is the free software and open source software. So it's a connection between empowering the users to reuse their equipment because they can, and on the other side, the government mandating that the public procurement for the software which is being used in public services should be open and free, so that there are no companies that are actually keeping people hostage for the upgrades and so on. And it is complex, it is difficult to achieve, but it is worth considering.
Thank you. Any other comments on this particular point, or a new point that someone would like to raise? We have only 15 minutes. I'd like us to have some wrap-up takeaways from our invited panelists, and also have some time to consider this proposal from Vesna, particularly added to by Rashi, to create what we've called a first protocol, Protocol 1 for Article 4 of the Charter, namely in the Protocol 1 to add an addendum, namely Article 4, Clause C and Clause D, I think, are from Rashi. But before we get there, any other comments about this issue between making it possible for people to see reuse and as enabling and empowering rather than kind of not very cool? Rashi.
I think that's only possible if the government really kind of lobbies and does a lot of education and awareness campaign. That's really how the messaging is done. And of course, you also have different sectors like civil society that bring in their expertise and talk about how perhaps the open source community can talk about the advantages and look back from the history. But I still feel that the government has a really important role in making sure that the economic incentives are also highlighted very deeply. Because if you do have economic incentives, then you can hold the citizens accountable in terms of, say, in India, we have fundamental duties. And then people perhaps would then be inspired to sort of, take practices. So there is a lot of behavioral economics and science that perhaps we would apply, and perhaps we as a community can churn out programs for that. Maybe something wonderful can come out of this.
Okay, just to remind the meeting that our Article 4 was ambitious enough 10 years ago, and it still remains ambitious, that the right to development is actually part of what the internet technology is supposed to do. And implicit in that Article 4 is the sense that internet technologies are actually hindering development, namely poverty reduction, are actually a source of unsustainable forms of consumerism, production lines, and all that sort of thing. And that, in fact, these technologies are perhaps contributing to environmental degradation rather than sustainability. So with that in mind, I've put on the chat the proposed additional clause just before I ask our panelists to give us their closing remarks. And that is a draft text which could foreseeably become our first protocol. Namely, instead of Clause A is poverty reduction, human development. Clause B is environmental sustainability. Vesna proposes Clause C along the lines of the usage of the internet for the protection of the environment must be balanced with protecting the environment from the growth of the internet. And then she has a slightly shorter version. So I'd like to put that forward for us to think about before we wrap up, whether the meeting feels that could be put forward as a draft text for Protocol 1 of Article 4 of the Charter of Human Rights and Principles for the Internet. Still quite broadly written, but this is the magic, so to speak, of these sorts of declarations and charters. They need to be able to go past the next 5 minutes. So thank you, Vesna, for the very professional drafting already. But without too much further ado, I'm going to start backwards. Hanan, are you still with us? And just ask our panelists to give us a less than 3 minute takeaway. If you could give us 1 to 2, maximum 3 concrete points you want, particularly June, to table for the meeting as our final takeaways, because we need this. This is part of the protocol for being in this environment. So I'm going to start with our final speaker, was Rashi. Would you like to give us your concluding 1 to 3, no more than, concrete comments? Thank you.
No, I think perhaps maybe I could give comments on the existing clause. Perhaps is that?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. You know. Yeah.
I really feel that we should, as someone from the youth, Noha and I, maybe there could be something where we could have perhaps a multi-stakeholder approach and have youth participation, because we are the most active netizens per se, and maybe also add a little bit on the supply chains and talk about fair wages, perhaps fair trade standards, on how we can green the internet, and maybe even bring about, I mean, of course, not bring about the SDGs, but perhaps talk about circular economy.
Thank you.
And I would also add digital literacy and upskilling as points under the gender aspect.
Thank you.
Gender equality, perhaps, I mean, you can mention equity, diversity and inclusion, and also digital inclusion is something that's really important.
Thank you. Yeah. That's all important. That fortunately is covered. Inclusion is covered in other articles of the Charter, but I think we are on to something very interesting here. Thank you, Rashi. Vesna.
Well, I feel like I already have said a lot, and I typed in a lot to the chat, but I would like to have even loftier goals. I don't know how to phrase them, but somebody mentioned protecting the environment, but I would rather say respecting the environment and going for the environmental justice rather than just sustainability. That's my final words.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that will be on the record. Thank you, Vesna. Aim higher. Aim higher. Thank you. Rigobert, vous êtes là?
Oui, Mariam.
Toujours.
Justement. Okay, toujours. Okay, thank you very much. As conclusion, I think Internal Right and Policy Coalition should develop a strong advocate to influence another organization and government to respect of environmental practice around internet freedom, digital right, and so on, and to have this good exercise. It will be good to join all actors in the regulation of a technological environment. I can talk about the technologists, digital innovators, digital actors, legislators, NGOs. And I think in this advocacy, it would be good to share the guideline for all and try to respect and verify if the internet and technology will give us the best nature for the next 100 years after our life. Thank you very much.
Merci, Rigobert. Thank you so much.
Merci
and
beaucoup,
for naming a
Marianne.
time frame as well. I would say we've got less time than 100 years to worry about. I think 100 years, we can get to the next 100 years, we're doing well. Thank you, Rigobert. Elias. Elias?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
Sorry
cool.
about that.
No
I'm
worries.
just thinking. I'm thinking more what we can do for the others rather than the others for us, and that's what we as or you as a group behind the Article 4. You could actually go and implant ideas in other discussions around UN or beyond. For example, there is a big discussion about AI and social issues and human rights issues about AI development. We could add the dimension of the environment because the deep learning is very polluting. One algorithm just in the training phase of a deep learning is a response. It's kind of equivalent to 5 cars' lifetimes emissions.
Really? Wow.
So AI, there are computationally and environmentally friendly ways to teach AI to be smart. So this has to be taken the way it's the social issues are taken into account and human rights. We need to implant the environmental issues. Now takes the other example. There is a lot of discussion about circularity, about environmental issues. We need to go back and remind these people that this will not go far unless the social issues and human rights are taken in. So I would say that this group is the one that sees 360 and goes to the discussions and completes the dimension that is missing. So that's one thing. Second, we should remind governments that there are green public procurements that are voluntary. And unless we really make it very visible and loud, that it cannot be ignored, that they should do, because there are huge IT projects around the world. There are huge projects that are procured by public money. We have in
by his national government is considered as someone, as an individual.
Sorry, who's that speaking, just for the record? Oh, it's okay. If you want to respond to Elias, you're welcome. Just to check. Elias, could you continue?
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, there are things that you can make to be difficult to ignore because they are ignored at the moment. It's not that we have lack of regulation or standards, they are basically ignored. So one of the roles you have to do it, you put it high on the level of, on the agenda so that it cannot be easily ignored. And we have in EU already green public procurements for data centers. So we can tell a country that wants to install data center, what is the green way to do it? We can, we have it for desktops and laptops for public offices or others that want to buy computers, how to do it in a green way. And that's a huge, knowledge that is not being used. And the last is that if you could be also a little bit of an observer, I don't want to do any kind of difficult observatory, infrastructural and resource incentive things, but if we could set up some kind of a wiki that puts this knowledge on a worldwide access to this basic awareness, that's a good start. And then people, you'll be surprised how people are innovative to translate that into action. So let's enable kind of a bottom-up ideas by at least making the world aware of what is happening on the large scale, because we have our own European, but we are just Europe. So you can go much beyond.
Thank you so much. Just to remind us, we do have a wiki, a core wiki based in the European Dialogue for Internet Governance plenary session that we developed in July. So that wiki, yes, definitely, Elias, you've underscored, work already beginning. And that leaves us, I think Hanan sadly has to leave, but that leaves us with Noha. Would you like to give us your concluding comments? We have 3 more minutes to go.
Yes, thanks, Marianne.
I would like time, guys. Go on.
I would like to recommend combining both statements B and C in one statement after simplifying it. And my takeaways are promoting a shared responsibility amongst all stakeholders, open the doors for innovation and innovative solutions, and I can't recall the last one. Yeah, I will ping you whenever I remember it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, at this point, I would like to suggest, and if people could indicate just with the chat, I would like to suggest the following, that the concluding comments from our 6 speakers be added as our outputs for the meeting, because they're all clear policy points. And secondly, that the Protocol 1 text, either clause B separately and clause C, or as Noha suggested, perhaps combining them, be put forth as an output, a draft output, the first Protocol 1 for Article 4 of the Charter. Does the meeting agree? I'd like to end with a very brief show of hands. Why not? Oh, lower all hands. I'm not going to lower anybody's hands. I just want to see what people think. Could you put it on the chat? You can say +1, me too, just to get a sense, so that our wonderful rapporteur, June, can we just put it on the meeting? Just +1, +1. So just to repeat that all the policy comments, at least from the speakers and all others that we can glean, are put together as our output, and the second one that we put forward, the draft Protocol 1, namely clause 4C, B, C and possibly D. Thank you. Keep going. Got 1 more minute according to my clock. Only room for accepting? No, you can just say -1, Georgiana, if you don't mind. You don't have to say plus, you can say 0. It's just to get a sense. Or you can say abstain, or you can say only legal votes count. All votes are legal in this setting.
Marianne, can
Let's
I
not
can I
make
add
fun
a
of our
point?
American friends. Okay.
We're not making fun. I'm not. So who was it who wanted to say something? Was there someone, please? Yes, Noah, was that you?
Yeah, I wanted to add the takeaway. I forgot. Also building trust with tech, both with software and hardware, by making them sustainable by design.
So yes, sustainability by design, which is to riff off privacy by design, which was championed by the Council of Europe and has become a European mantra. So yeah.
And we have a history behind the design, because there is also a long history of accessibility by design and inclusion by design. So we can follow those footsteps on the sustainability by design, because it's not the first time that we're trying to squeeze something in the design. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So 360 degrees means around the clock, around the compass. So I think if we are all happy, I'd like to end this wonderful session. We have enormous amount of material. Is someone copying and pasting the chat box now, just so we've got a raw record, because someone could do that, just everything. I'd like to thank our speakers for your professionalism, for your expertise and your extraordinary amount of knowledge. I've learned an enormous amount. Thank you for all the attendees. And at this point, I would like to declare this meeting closed and wish you a happy, safe Friday. Namaste, and be safe, be well, and join the coalition and enjoy the rest of the IGF online, and don't buy the latest model of your iPhone or your tablet yet. Just to think about it really concretely. Think twice. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Marianne, can we take a group photo?
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take a snapshot picture of everybody. Smile.
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that it? Okay, I think I'm not quite sure. I think we can stay on the meeting, those of us who are part of it. We'll just let the others, we've got 17 new messages. Just let people leave, because otherwise if we stop the meeting, we'll have to start another one. So we'll just, thank you everyone, that was great. I think there was a lot of material on the chat, wasn't it? Thank you, Ame, thank you. All our attendees are still filing out the door, as they say. Thank you.
Tech team, I guess we can end the live, right?
Tech team, can we stop the live and can we stay on just with our group, just to have